already finished. So we had this housekeeping guy who's never been to school. His job is in Hindi is called Safai Karamchari, which means the one who cleans. So this guy turns and he goes to the HR manager and says, "I'm sorry, but I cannot speak tomorrow, so I'm not going to be there." He said, "I'm sorry, but I can't give you an exception. You need to speak to Vinod. He's the only one who can grant an exemption on this." He comes to me and says, "I have a big problem. I've never spoken to more than 4 people. He wants me to speak to 200 people. It's impossible. I'm very nervous and I can't do this." So I talk him through this and I said, "Don't worry. Go home, sleep. Just come up there and even if you have to say good morning to everybody, that's fine. But you have to be there, and I will be there tomorrow especially. I want to stand by your side and hear what you have to say, because I think you have something very interesting." So we talked about this, and of course he was not convinced. He went away. Next morning, this guy was there looking very, very pale. Because if somebody had to stand, hold him, otherwise he would fall. And so I told him that the trick is there are only 5 queues of people there, rows of people. Look at the first 5 and talk to them. So this guy starts off the speech of his, and he says, "I couldn't sleep, as you know, the whole night. I'm very nervous, but I believe I have no choice." So I started thinking about what I should speak about. I said, "What is my designation?" And I'm called a Safai Karamchari, the one who cleans. So my question was, what do I clean? I clean what you people make dirty. And he says, "Then I must speak to you. Because if you make it less dirty, I have less job." And he went on into some detail. He says, "But often when I see the way our toilets are kept, often when I see the way the floor is, I keep telling my children that you must study hard because I don't want them to be like you. But he says, the worst I feel is that when educated people like you keep something so dirty, use it so badly, then I feel it's not such a bad thing not going to school because after all I think exactly like you." And he went on to this 5 minutes. There were tears in that audience. And the factory has been much cleaner ever since. That is the power of being able to tell people, put them in front of their clients or their customers or their market. Leave them there and they will perform. And that's something that we learned that day. We take attrition very seriously, and in Indian industry, attrition, the rate of people leaving is very high at the moment. Largely because at one time there was a whole wave of call centers. Anybody who could speak English was answering their phones in the US or Japan or wherever you were. Yeah, and that fortunately is settling down a little bit. And there is still a paucity of people who want to work for the manufacturing industry. So obviously it's big. But we treat that, from our way of thinking, it's the rate of unbelonging. A person who leaves your company in 6 months was our fault or our failure because we didn't get him to belong to the team, though he gave us an opportunity for 6 months. If you look at it like that, you will find a lot of answers for why it has been gone. So finally, faith in people means faith in their potential. The second one was to imbibe in people this whole business of pursuit of excellence. Comes to mind a story of a person I met in most unlikely of places. Near West India, Pune, there is a small town called Ahmednagar. Very nondescript place. I light up one night there and I had to go and see some customers. There are 3 factories of a company called Video0013, making televisions and refrigerators, etc. I sent a message to them, so I go to see my customers. And this is my first visit there. So I let us late in the night, check into a hotel, very small, 2-star kind of place. The next morning when I'm coming down, I tell this guy, "Can you get me a cab? Because I need it for the whole day. I want to keep my bag. I want somebody trustworthy." So I said to me and say, "It looks like you're here for the first time because there are no cabs in the city. The best you can do is an auto rickshaw. And you want somebody trustworthy, I recommend you go outside and find a lot of auto rickshaws waiting. There's one gentleman who's a mulladi, which means a Muslim prophet. There's a flowing beard, he's easy to recognize. I would trust him." That's okay. So I go outside and I find people are chatting and chewing tobacco and smoking cigarettes or BD or whatever they're having. But there's this one man somewhere in the queue, he's polishing his auto rickshaw. And he is a mulladi. I approach him and I make a deal with him. I say, "I want you to be with me all day and tell guy has good things to say about you." We strike a deal. As I sit in the auto rickshaw, I find that it's cleaner than normal. And there are 2 whiteboards. So I'm sitting at the passenger, I don't know how many people sat in an auto rickshaw. What is it called? Tri-rickshaw or tuk-tuk, as they call it in Thailand. So this guy sits in the front and you sit at the back, and there are 2 whiteboards. On one whiteboard, he's written the railway timings of all the trains arriving in Ahmednagar that day. The updates. On the other, he's got 3 or 4 cinema halls in that city. What are the movies running there? environment, we need to admire that and sort of keep that in. He picks up a little driver's seat and takes out two newspapers, one in English and one in the local language, Marathi. And he says, doesn't look like you can read Marathi, but here's the English newspaper for you. And he shows me a bottle of water and says, in case you need water, here it is. So obviously, this is very different from any other which you will find. And so through the day, as we go through my business of these three factories, I get chatting about his family, his inspiration, what he does. And he tells me that this guy was preparing in school to be a civil servant. He wanted to join the government because that seemed to be the best job in that part of the country. And unfortunately, when he was preparing for his exams, or when he was going to give them, his father died. He was the eldest child in the family. So he couldn't even complete his own studies, and the whole dream went away. And there was nothing else he could do but drive an auto rickshaw. So he said that I served myself for a year. I would go every day and read my prayers 5 times a day. And sort of begrudge Allah for putting me in a life like that. And he said, then suddenly something happened to me one day. And I said, look, hang on a minute. You couldn't be an officer in the civil service or in the government if you are an auto rickshaw driver. And nothing stops you from being a great auto rickshaw driver. So he says, from that day I made it my mission to be the best auto rickshaw driver that you've ever seen. And every day I ask myself that same question. Every evening I report to Allah in my prayers. And I'm grateful to him, so he gave me the opportunity to be the best there. And he says, now I own this one, and I have one more which I lease out and I train people. He's the president of the local union of auto rickshaw drivers. And he's making a big difference to that whole community. So that became our example for excellence in the company. So you don't have to be a managing director of a company or a Harvard business graduate or a management guru to be excellent. In each thing that we do every day, we can question if this is the best I can do, compete with myself on a daily basis, and improve my performance. And if I have a platform where others are doing the same, where we share our successes and our failures, and when we fail, nobody wraps up on the knuckles, then I think we've got a story of an excellent team working together. And that's what we hope to be doing in the company since then. So we chase quality, we chase customer satisfaction, we chase delight. So when we go to our customers, for example, we have with our top 10 customers what we call a monthly PPM meeting, which means that of course if capacitors fail and percentages, then I will be called and we will lose that business. I'll have to pay a lot of penalties in that business. But they don't fail fortunately in percentages, but sometimes they fail in PPM, in parts per million. We supply 10 million capacitors to somebody in Ostrava, in Czech Republic, and then he will report to me if he has 10 failures. He will definitely call me. But if he has 1 or 2 failures, he doesn't call me because it's too little. And he probably has some other components that are failing more. How do I push to excellence with a customer like that? By setting up a meeting with him every month, saying, even if one piece fails, and I don't want to talk to the manager, I want to talk to the guy who's using that capacity. I have a direct link with him. If it's within the city, of course, we can go and visit that customer. Pick up that one capacitor that failed. Come back and do what we call a full PDA, a plan, do, check, act. Why did it fail? What is the corrective action? What is the preventive action? Go down to the bottom, show it to the worker because of who may have caused some amount of failure in this capacity. And then you can follow it for life. And that's what we call a continuous cycle of excellence. When you do all this right, as it happens, fortunately in our case, profit flows. The other way, a lot of my colleagues in the business are chasing that. They go with dollar dreams in their mind every morning to work, and they come back because reporting that their workers are lousy, their managers are not responsible, the banks are probably too much, the customer is demanding too much, he has no idea what a good quality is, etc. etc. So they blame everybody else, make some money, but I think have reasons comparatively unhappy lives. This is very easy to work if we are very pure in the purpose of what we are trying to do. Some of my colleagues have tried to also pretend this focus, put up a pretense of sharing it with their people, but not going to the last mile, and I've seen them lose. What I mean by that is total transparency. Profit and loss statement must be shared on a quarterly basis with every single worker. He must be trained in seeing what kind of profit am I making, why am I making this, which areas are performing better than the others, and what can they do to get it. We used to have, before I joined this company, even in those 45 people, we used to have something funny called a wage agreement every 3 years. So every 3 years, the management would sit with the representatives of the workers and come up with something like called a wage agreement. And they would endlessly tell you how living has become very expensive, and you would endlessly tell them how you cannot afford to give any more. And when we thought from this, and I told them, I said, this is a ridiculous agreement, as far as I'm concerned. Your wage agreements are done with your customers. I don't pay you any money. I'm only a modus operandi. I'm only a route that takes something from the customer and gives a part of it to you. Part of the supplier, part of the government. So why do you come to me asking for this? You know the equation, you know the profit and loss statement. Let's work that together and make sure that we can build in a 10, 15, 20% rise in wages every year. Why in the year? In the years that we can do it, great. In the years we can't do it, we'll be like a family. There's less money coming home, we will eat less. When the crisis hit us, in the first month that I heard of the crisis, we had a team meeting with all the heads of division, who were very glad that this was taken to our full, what we call a general body meeting, to all employees. And I explained to them that I don't know. In my life, I'm facing a crisis for the first time of this kind. I believe it's going to be very bad. And these are the things that can go wrong. Customers will stop paying you because they will have a cash flow problem. The governments will increase the tax rate because they have a paucity of money. So we put out what are the 4 or 5 terrible things that can happen. What should be our response to this? And even before things got bad, you'll be surprised to know, I had a declaration from all my employees saying they will give up the increment. Nobody wanted any increment. Then finally we said, no, that's not okay. We can still afford it, the situation is not so bad. So all the non-executives got their increments, but the executives, of course, did not get any increments that year. Then 6 months later, as far as we were concerned, the crisis was over. In fact, we had done better in the crisis than before. And we were very happy to sort of return all that, again in a very transparent manner. So the whole issue is being pure with it. It's not a time to make some extra money. They know exactly what's going on, otherwise they're not worth being a part of that team. That's what we did. So I think all of us, and you will read a lot of articles about what motivates people, and I hear that used to be salary, the position, the recognition, etc., etc. To me, it's very simple. It's not rocket science. If you make me feel unfair, that I have been given unfair treatment, I will not forgive you or forget you. Simple as that. It has to be always a relationship of respect. You come to work, you get a certain amount of money, you must work for that. You talk to me and I say, yes, I will do something about it, it means I must do something. If I can't do anything about it, I must tell you I cannot do anything about it. This is the way you have to live. And I think what we do forget is in all the huge gears of the management machinery that works around the world, we have forgotten that basic principle. And you will find that most of the time when you are living with your own colleagues or friends or your wife or spouse living at home, it's because he or she has said that they were treated unfairly. So, to me, it's very basic. If you avoid that, you're okay. A lot of people take shortcuts, and I think, as the word says, they often fall short. They don't achieve what you were supposed to achieve. It's a compromise. And a compromise, in my opinion, is not a win-win. It is always something that, if you follow theory of constraints, Goldrat, a compromise always results in what he calls undesirable effects. So instead of there's something I learned recently in the practice and lived in the company, slight deviation. I need a compromise because I have conflict with people. But if I can reduce that conflict to what I call contradiction, which means that now we start talking about the assumptions. If you have a conflict with me and saying you're a lousy manager, I have no way of settling that. The only compromise is please don't say it on my face. And yet, same bad effects will continue. But if you have a conflict and say, I think you are a bad manager because on that day you displayed the following behavior, which to me means that you are a bad manager. Now we can talk at the level of assumptions, and I can say, you know why I behave like that? Because you don't understand the full assumption that was there. You don't know something that was actually happening. When we do it at a level of contradiction, we don't need a compromise, but we reach what we would call reach the correct assumption. And when we do that, we avoid conflict, we avoid compromise, and we avoid undesirable things. Basically, in a nutshell, we be fair to people at that level so that you understand.